All right, we're on Genesis chapter 1. Now 3 through 5, we've spent a considerable amount of time looking at verses 1 through 2. There's so much to consider. There's so much that corroborates what we can observe around the earth, and actually better than evolution, a recent creation. Let's begin Genesis chapter 1, verses 3 through 5. So look for letter G for Genesis. Genesis chapter 1. Move on down to 3 through 5. We covered all of this. Now we're going through 3 through 5. The first thing is actually point 10 that we've been looking at going through Genesis chapter 1. The day equals an age theory is refuted. So many Christians like to go by this day-age theory because they're enamored of the scientific approach, which is not scientific at all, to evolutionism. And they hear this in school, and so they try to transform the Bible into something that's consistent and relevant, instead of getting into very constructive arguments, contention for the faith. It is good to be contending for the faith. Jesus Christ did that, especially in John chapter 8, if you go back and review that. And are we to do anything less when we become informed? To study and show yourself approved. Let's look at the day-age theory refuted. Because in 3, 4, and 5, it says, "Then God said, 'Let there be light,' and there was light. And God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the first day." So successive days in Hebrew with an ordinal adjective and an evening and a morning equals a solar 24-hour day. If God is having this word of his inspired by men, it's going to be with the context that the men have the capacity to understand. So in spite of popular opinion that the word day cannot be taken here as an age or some other period of time, the word day in Yom in the Hebrew Old Testament always means a literal 24-hour day when accompanied with an ordinal adjective, first and second, and always means a literal 24-hour day when it contains an evening and a morning. You have to have a semantic approach because words are semantic. A lot of times people argue with me, "You're getting semantical." Well, if you have a tool like a hammer, and you're acting like a carpenter, well, yeah, the hammer is a tool for the carpenter. Words are the tools of semantics. So you have to be semantic. Yom in numbers. The word yom, which is the Hebrew transliteration in English letters, either singular or plural, is used with a number of 359 times outside of Genesis chapter 1. There are 4 prominent ways in which yom could be combined with a number to bring forth a certain significance. First, when the plural noun form is used with a cardinal number, 1, 2, 3, it denotes a specific duration of time. Exceptions which contain a singular form of yom do occur, but are infrequent. This construction occurs 189 times. An example of this can be seen in Genesis 30:36. "Then he put a 3-day journey between himself and Jacob," 24-hour days. The second uses the preposition on or for, or these Hebrew words, to show that an action is to take place on a specific yom or day. The number used in this construction is generally an ordinal, first, second, third, with yom in the singular, and occurs 162 times. This can be illustrated by Exodus 24:16. "For 6 days the glory covered the mountain, and on the 7th day the Lord called to Moses from within the cloud. Although the construction of Genesis 1 does not precisely fit this pattern, it does appear that the phrase, "and it was evening and it was morning," functions in a similar manner to the preposition that is on the 6th day comprised an evening and a morning, bringing out the semantic significance of a solar 24-hour day. Now, De Vries alludes to the same kind of function. After all has been said, the fact that surprises us the most is that these Hebrew words are used The expression is used as often as it is an epitome, a summarizing characterization concerning a particular day in which Israel's God was in some way seen to be active in crucial confrontation with his people. These were not multi-billion year or million year days. These were 24-hour days, because who are we addressing in God's word? Mankind of accountable age that knows how to read. Although there was no hint of a confrontation in Genesis 1, it should be noted that these phrases, translated "and it was," function to summarize the activities of the previous day. So it seems reasonable to place the concluding phrases in Genesis 1 in this category. So the last two types are few in number, but use prepositions to signify a certain day as a starting point or a terminal point of an action, and occur a total of 7 times. Here too the word yom is singular and is associated with an ordinal number. An example of the starting point is Ezra 3:6. On the first day of the 7th month, they began to offer burnt offerings to the Lord. Do you think that's more than a 24-hour day? The terminal point is seen in Leviticus 19:6. Anything left over until the 3rd day must be burned up. 24-hour day. Terence Fritham observed, when the word day is used with a specific number, it always refers to a normal 24-hour day. Precedence. Practice of language, context, and logic. The rules of language we have to follow. Can't make up something special just because you think it's in the Bible. There is another point which should be brought out when discussing the syntagmatic relationship of yom and numbers as they are used in a series. And Fritham observes that the use of yom in a numbered series such as found in Genesis 1, Numbers 7 and 29 as well, always has reference to a normal day. So as Fritham suggests, when the interpreter sees the word yom used with a number occurring several times in succession in a specific context, this construction serves to denote a solar day. This also is in keeping with the use of numbers in human languages, for the numbers point to things which can be properly enumerated, not something abstract, but something that is concrete. This can be seen in some of the things which the Hebrew language enumerated: people, places, objects relating to the tabernacle, rings, candlesticks, curtains, parts of the human body, building materials, and so on. It would seem that the Hebrew language uses numbers to modify those things, which are well known by human experience. Newman admits the view that yom in Genesis 1 signifying a normal day has the advantage that no clear counterexample of yom with an ordinal adjective can be cited with yom meaning a long period of time. It's always a 24-hour day. So when the word yom is combined with a number, it would appear that it is meant to communicate a 24-hour day. Didn't mean to beat this to death, but unless you do, you don't make the good point. Now, yom, in other words, there are other words which are often syntagmatically related with yom: morning, evening, night, light, and darkness. These words, along with the use of numbers, will aid in establishing a pattern of use, particular one. This, in turn, will aid in an accurate interpretation of yom in Genesis 1. The two words morning and evening are combined with yom 19 times each outside of Genesis 1. 3 times these words share the same reference. Look at Numbers 9, 15, and these other passages. And with each occurrence, 24-hour day is signified. This is true no matter what the literary genre or context might be. Outside of the Bible, still the same thing, still rules of language. It should be further observed that when morning and evening occur together without yom, this happens 38 times outside of Genesis 1, 25, and 38, it occurs in historical narrative. It always, without exception, designates a literal solar 24-hour day. So any combination of the words morning, evening, and yom, and use their extra linguistic referential value to its fullest extent, pointing to the length of time according to the fixed natural alternation of day and night, on which are based all the other units of time as well as the calendar. We have to belabor this because this is a point that hinges on trying to support the Bible, forcing it to support evolution. The word night is similarly associated with yom. These words are combined 53 times in the Old Testament outside of Genesis 1. The majority, 26 times, appears in historical sections, and of the remainder, 16 are in the poetic sections and 11 in the prophetic. The meaning communicated by these combinations is also a solar day. Here, too, the extra-linguistic factor, a literal circle of light followed by a cycle of night, day and night, points to a reality outside of the word itself. It is thought that this use of yom as the opposite of night represents its semantic core. Something slightly different is encountered when one examines the use of the words light and darkness with yom. Light appears in yom 15 times outside of Genesis 1, and in most cases it refers to the cycle of time with these observable exceptions. Okay, some exceptions. The context makes it clear that the figurative language used in these verses refers to some future time when God will demonstrate his power to man. Darkness is used in conjunction with yom 11 times beyond Genesis 1, and most of these, 7 of them, are figurative. These references are herein stated. The Ecclesiastes passage uses darkness as a time of trouble. The prophetic passages use eschatological language to denote some future time. It must also be noted that there are very few uses of light or darkness with yom in the historical sections, and light has 3 and darkness has 1. So, the majority occur in the prophetic genre, where often these words have a symbolic meaning of blessing or judgment. However, when these words are used in historical narrative, they employ their referential value, referring to that which is known by human experience, again, a 24-hour day. Context, context, context. And now we refer to the other side of the argument. The plural yom never refers to more than thousands of years. It appears that yom has part of a variety of formulae, some of which could denote a long time. The plural use of yom is the communicator of long time. This does not contradict the previous section, because in the illustrations that follow, yom stands in the syntagmatic relationship that is different from those ones already discussed. The singular use tends to denote a short time. Once this is examined, the interpreter should be able to define context in which yom would clearly communicate longer lengths of time. It's all about context. It would appear from the historical genre used in the Old Testament that yom in the plural ends to be a part of a formula communicating a specific length of time. This fellow author here, Gershon Brin, observes that yom is used for naming errors in biblical times. This kind of formula has a personal name or title attached to the era. Examples of this can be seen in Genesis 5 and 10, days of X, name of the patriarch. The names within the genealogies could be used to designate the era in which that person lived. And this is also frequently observed in the book of Judges, where we read of the days of X, name of the king himself or the judge, and the author states how long it lasted. Common sense here. Context. This formula can also be used in the prophetic genre, following the same pattern, with one observable exception, Micah 7:15, and where instead of a name, this phrase is used when you came out of Egypt. That's reading the context. The reference points to the future when God will show his power to the Gentile nations. So the reference to the days of signifies the period of the Exodus from Egypt. Okay. The use of yom in the plural signifies a set of length of time, and the syntagmatic relationships within the context determines how long it is. There are occurrences of yom in the plural that appear to cover a period of thousands of years by using 2 Hebrew words for a great length of time. They are of old and everlasting. So we know by common sense of reading, we know what that is. We also have Isaiah 51:9 illustrates the first word as it says, awake as in the days gone by, as in the generations of old. So there we know the context is more than a 24-hour day. The context is a metaphorical reference to God's work of creation, and this is the same kind of work which will be undertaken for his people. These same words also appear in other passages to illustrate that humans had inhabited the earth for a long time, by then a period of around 3,000 years. So we can move on. We have exceptions where the observations can be made from the plural use of yom that the time covered is of the order of a few thousand years, not orders of a magnitude larger. Therefore, it does not appear that the context of Genesis will allow the interpreter to fit what could possibly be billions of years into the singular yom in the events of creation, as it is alleged by so many.